Now, the Taliban in Afghanistan deliberately diverts international aid by force, blocks minority communities from receiving aid, and may even collude with UN officials to seek kickbacks. Now, that is according to the US watchdog, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. The organization's report is today the Taliban is celebrating 4 years back in power ahead of tomorrow's anniversary of the fall of Kabul. The Taliban's return to power, of course, a huge impact on the people, notably women, in Afghanistan. Well, we're going to talk now to Afghan-Canadian journalist, editor-in-chief of Zan Times. It is a women's-led newsroom operating in exile, Zara Nada. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. First of all, let's talk about that report I mentioned at the top there, the Taliban blocking aid by force, blocking minority communities from receiving aid. I assume that's no surprise to you.
Yes, of course, there is no surprise at all because we already knew about what was happening there. And actually, in April 2023, we have documented how the Taliban are stealing humanitarian aid. To little bit give you background information, how that really happens. So there is several mechanisms that the Taliban are using to steal the humanitarian aid that is intended for the people of Afghanistan. One of those mechanisms is a mechanism that they use in terms of like who is able to get the aid. That's at some level, it's the Taliban determining who is eligible to receive the aid. They are the one who is preparing the list of the recipient of the aid. To give you a more concrete example of that, how that works, we spoke to a widow woman who doesn't have a man in his life. He is living in poverty and need food to feed her children. She cannot work because the Taliban said she's not allowed to work. She cannot legally rent a home. And she is advised to go to the elders of the mosque in order to list herself for receiving aid. When she go to the mosque, in some cases, the mosque person or the mosque mullah, whoever is responsible for taking her name, is asking her that I will do it only if you split the aid with me. Half of the aid mine, half is yours. I will allow you to do that. And so in some cases, this is different. I will list your name in exchange for you to give this percentage to me or do something for me in exchange for that. So that's in a small level. And most of the people who are allowed to take these names are actually the Taliban affiliates and people who are working with the Taliban. At a larger level, it's the Taliban government or the Taliban governors who are deciding where the aid should be invested. And they do this by exerting power on the NGO directors who are working locally on the ground. They are being given list and information and plan where that they should first send the aid to, because we feel people on those districts are more deserving of aid. Why? Because they are the Taliban affiliates, they are the Taliban soldiers. And especially in provinces with minorities like Hazara people, in provinces like Bamiyan and Daikundi, we have documented that these provinces they rarely get cash aid and they rarely receive proper aid because the Taliban don't see them as deserving of receiving aid.
Let me interrupt you for just a moment. I mean, how would you say that life has changed for people in Afghanistan since the Taliban took power back?
So the way it have changed is at several levels. One is that most of the people in Afghanistan lost their job because the withdrawal happened and the NGOs left. So most of the people in Afghanistan in many ways affected because there's no food, there's no work for them to do. But at another level is the Taliban's policies that is causing these issues in Afghanistan. For example, the Taliban banning half of the population of Afghanistan from working, from going to school, from earning their living. This has directly affected the way that the economy works in Afghanistan. And also sectors like art, music are entirely banned because the Taliban said it's illegal for them, it's haram. So basically, it's the Taliban policies that are causing some of the crisis that Afghanistan is experiencing. But at the moment, what we are seeing is that the refugees are also arriving in Afghanistan, where 90% of the population don't have anything to eat. And to tell you how life have been changed, the life have become very, very poor. The people of Afghanistan cannot afford to eat, and particularly women of Afghanistan have been deprived of their basic human rights, the right to go to school, the right to be able to earn their living and live a human life.
And is there any way that either people there or people such as yourselves outside of Afghanistan can try to influence the future direction of the country?
Definitely, this is something all of us are trying to do. We are trying to build a society where our human rights are respected. But how to do that? We know and we understand, and we have said this before, that as long as the Taliban are in power, that future is not possible. Because the Taliban is a very narrow-minded group of people who are deem themselves or think that their duty is to take people to paradise, basically, to enforce the religion on them, to ensure that they practice what the Taliban deem is religion. But that is not the way that the people of Afghanistan wants to live their life as a human being. And that's why the people in Afghanistan right now, many women have turned their home into secret schools. They have turned their home into library, book clubs. In any way possible, they are resisting with their own means, with their own method, to be able to envision a life beyond the Taliban. They are getting prepared for that life, but I don't know how long would it take for us to get there.
Zahra Noda, thanks very much for being with us on the programme today. Zahra Noda, who's editor-in-chief of Zan Times, joining us there.